So I've only ever been to LA once. It was for vacation when my cousin
Sorry to
was
hear that.
married. That it was a vacation, or that I was only there once?
That you were in LA.
That's fair. But you guys both, Flex, studied in LA for a semester.
Yes.
So I'm sure, did you ever pass the Scientology building? I know they try and make it really like hidden.
Yeah,
secret.
it's
It
super
actually
subtle.
is. I mean, it kind of is. You can see it from a distance at the top of a hill. We didn't go up to the gate. Devastating.
I know.
But there are a bunch of people that they line on Hollywood Boulevard.
Yeah,
that are
they have
handing out
they have a
pamphlets.
building on Hollywood Boulevard as well.
Yeah, I was gonna actually, I take it back. When I was in LA the one time, and maybe junior year of high school, there was somebody who came up to my family and was like, hey, like, here's a pamphlet, like,
Yeah.
you should check this out. Did you guys ever get approached? Or
All
were you
the
just
time.
never on
Yeah,
Hollywood
yeah.
Boulevard?
Yeah, all the time. I mean, Hollywood Boulevard is just like a place to get approached by whoever is trying to sell
West
something.
Coast Times Square. It's ridiculous.
It's
Yeah.
worse, I'd say. Yeah.
Did you ever pretend to be like interested? Like, oh, wait, what is this? I've
feel
never
like
heard of
we-
this.
I feel like
did.
we did. I think there was a time that you and I both looked at each other and like, do you want to indulge this
Yeah.
for 3 minutes?
I think we did play around with it. Yeah.
and
Did
we
you
were like,
indulge a little
oh, okay. And then I think one of us said something a little off color and they like got suspicious and then we got out of there. I think that's what happened.
That sounds
Yeah.
about right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we
That's-
were almost indoctrinated. It was fun.
Yeah.
Oh, I was
guess you
this close. This close.
didn't quite make the cut. They were like, they seem a little too self-aware.
Yeah, we
No.
didn't make it to the level of the aliens. I'm excited to get into it. This is
Yeah,
gonna be fun.
we'll get into it. They were like, they looked at you guys and they're like, you've probably seen HBO before. You've probably.
Yes.
You guys
This
look like
looks
you
like
watch
the
HBO.
face of a person that has seen HBO.
Yeah. And they're like, you've probably seen the documentary. You probably know. Well, welcome back to the Dark Archive. I'm Gavin.
I'm Chris.
I'm Caroline.
And if you're new here, it's usually the same faces for the most part. But
Mhm.
now we have a new face here. Caroline, technically our second official guest.
Who was the first?
Jordan with
Ah,
Shyla a
gotcha,
few weeks
gotcha.
back.
When you did Peaky Blinders.
Peaky Blinders.
Peaky Blinders.
Yeah. Check that out. But so yeah, instead of Shyla, we got Caroline here today.
Yeah.
Welcome, Caroline.
The
Are you-
consolation prize.
Yeah, are you happy to be this? It's not that it's not that Shyla couldn't make it and you're here. It was we got to get you on, because also we'll just throw this out in the beginning. You two have a podcast.
We do.
together. Little
We do.
promotion,
We know each
self-promotion.
other a bit.
We're familiar with each other's work. Yeah.
Yeah,
We shared a bedroom.
It's called Snubs. You can't just throw that piece of information
We
out.
shared a
It's very
bedroom, but it was
misleading.
like a 1950s sitcom where it was two twin beds on opposite sides of the room.
yeah,
That's an important detail.
that's fair. Well, if if you like Chris's voice, but you're tired of my voice, and
Mhm.
and by the end of this episode, if you're at least content with Caroline's voice, and you're like, hey, I want to hear more of this, but less of Gavin.
And
Check
more
out
Which
about
is
Snubs.
movies.
understandable.
Yeah. So I'll shut up. What is Snubs?
It's a movie podcast. We talk about movies. We talk about movies that have been snubbed by the Oscars and where we think our favorite movies should have fit into different Oscar years. It's lots of fun. If you like it, go check it out. If you're a hater, don't do it.
Can I say,
Um,
Caroline, that was the best you've ever done that description of the podcast, and you do it every week on the podcast. That's the best you've ever done it.
Yeah, that's like how you start the episode, and you've done what? Maybe
40,
almost
45, something
almost
like that.
50 at this point.
Yeah.
Finally nailed it. But when we record in a couple hours, I promise you she'll shank it.
Yeah. Well, you know what they say, 50, it takes 50 times to get something pretty
That's
good.
I
famously
do it
what they
great
say.
every time. I do it like it's like really good every
It is a
time.
lie.
I rarely fuck it up. I
You
literally rarely fuck it up. If you
often
listen
fuck it
to
up.
them, no,
Yeah, because they're edited.
I don't.
So,
need
and you
this.
guys don't have video, so it's really, you can do some real clean cuts.
Oh, we the amount of out-of-pocket stuff we say that we have to cut out, like it's
And the people, they don't know the difference. They're like, this is
No.
a smooth conversation.
yeah.
Yeah, he doesn't cut out my likes though.
I started doing that. I'm getting better at catching the likes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
As somebody I say like a lot, you'd think after doing after being on podcasts for as long as I have, that I would, and being the one to edit myself, that I'd be like, man, I'm tired of hearing myself say like I should just stop. No, can't do it. Can't do it.
Yeah.
I don't think I say or quite as much.
Mine's like a lot.
Yeah. say like a lot.
I sound like a valley girl. It's really bad.
It's because we lived in LA for 5 months. That's what happened. We lived in the valley.
You picked up an accent?
Yeah. That's what happens when you live in Burbank for 5 months.
The worst one.
So I joked about this a few weeks ago when we did the cryogenics episode. Was check that out. If you haven't.
That was a funny one.
That was a fun one.
I enjoyed that.
Because Chris, do you remember how I started that episode?
No.
Okay, that's fine.
I don't listen to the show.
That's fine. We recorded that like months ago. I started that by saying, hey, I asked what you guys wanted to talk about. And Chris immediately was like, frozen people. And so in a very similar way, I say, hey, Chris and Caroline, would love to have you on an episode. What weird, dark, strange things you want to talk about? Immediately, Scientology.
And here we are.
So now I put you on blast, Caroline. Why?
Okay. So
she's a big fan.
I'm not a big fan. We could get into like the actual like serious reasons. Like I grew up in a religion. I'm interested in other religions because of that religion, and this seems like the most wackadoodle one. That's kind of the simple answer. But also I had this weird like crippling fear of Tom Cruise when I was like in middle school. Like I could not watch a movie with him in it. It like freaked me out. He had that face. I knew too much.
And the teeth in the middle don't help.
It was a face situation. I could not watch a movie with Tom Cruise. It genuinely like threw me off. So I watched the Scientology documentary, and it was like my horror story because it was like, oh, this man's also insane and he could get you.
Wait, so you were afraid of Tom Cruise before finding out that he was a Scientologist?
Yeah, so I like had that instinct.
You knew that something was up.
Now my relationship with Tom Cruise is different. I like a lot of his movies.
Now he's pro Tom Cruise.
He's fun to watch, but there's a lot of issues clearly, and he could be dangerous. So we're going to talk about this, and Scientology's whack, and it is kind of funny. There's like a weird kind of funny aspect of it, but it's also very serious because it affects people's lives every day. So we're going to talk about it.
It is, and we'll joke. For the listeners, the three of us, we're very joking people. And I think I put a similar type of disclaimer in front of, I don't remember if I put it in front of one of the other episodes where it's like, we joke because some of this stuff is insane and uncomfortable. So we'll probably joke when we shouldn't, but also maybe.
But also get over it.
Well, maybe get over it. And also maybe we'll be a little serious when we should be, because you're totally right, Caroline. Some of this stuff, it's like, oh, ha ha ha, silly man and his religion. But some of it's like, it has really impacted people.
Yeah.
And I feel like I say this.
It's like the religious equivalent of a timeshare, basically. It's
it's consistent, and it's one of those ones you'd think would go away, but it doesn't. It's stuck around, and it's probably going to continue to stick around. And just like every other topic that we talk about, I'm always like, yeah, I know about this topic. And then I research it and I'm like, oh, wow, I did not know about this topic. This is nuts.
Now, did you get this from the science? Where'd you do your research? On Scientology.com?
I don't think that's a reputable site.
Or FBI.gov, which is where most of these scripts come from.
Surprisingly, this script was not from FBI.gov. Maybe if we did this in like another decade, maybe
Fingers
there'll be
crossed.
some stuff. Maybe there'll be some stuff on FBI.gov. I'll be honest, a lot of this is from Wikipedia, because this is very surface level stuff. Because once you really get into it, it is, again, nutty. I did go on the Scientology website. I didn't want to be on there too long for the similar reason of why I didn't want to be on the FBI website too long, because you feel like you should not be there. The one crazy thing on the Scientology website, no, one of many, is that, and you tell me whether this makes sense, they have basically their own streaming channel.
Yeah.
And it's
like North Korea over there.
But all religions do. The Catholics have channels. Like, I mean,
that's an interesting point you bring up, Chris. Like all religions do. Like that's kind of a way of like a lot of people use to kind of excuse Scientology, because I mean, people will be like, well, all religions are like that. And listen, that's a deeper conversation about religion that we're not going to get into today. But it is interesting how like they're able to kind of finagle their system, which is a cult. It's not really a religion.
Yeah, it's a cult.
It's a cult.
It's a thin line between cult
it
and
is
religion.
It is a thin line, but this is a cult. And they kind of use other religions as their model, but X, Y, and Z is doing this and X, Y, and Z is doing that, but not the way you're doing it, Buster. And yeah, so I think that'll be an interesting thing to get into too, about religious exemption for certain things and stuff.
Yeah, I will admit, obviously, as a curious person, not curious about joining, but just curious about their streaming service, they have a lot of original programming, which is not surprising, but
did you check any of it out?
I did. There was one, I forget what it's called. And again, same with the FBI website. I don't want to open it back up again, but it was a guy in this kind of CGI library space and like talking, I forget, I think it was just about like the general book and like what is Scientology? And they had a lot of these like CGI motion graphics of like the camera moving around and all of a sudden like a scene appearing in the cloud. And I was like, damn, they got some VFX guys up in here.
They got a budget because this is a for-profit institution.
Oh yeah, we get to that. They make money and they don't pay taxes.
Nope.
Classic religion.
Yeah, that's, maybe we should start a religion. I don't know what the basis would be on, but at this point,
Oliver did it. John
it's
Oliver
not that
did
hard.
It's not hard.
Joe.
You pretty much just need a domain name.
Yep.
And yeah, if only we were sponsored by like what's the one that
BetterHelp?
Well, that's one. What's the Squarespace? Squarespace always sponsors all of them because like check out our cult website we made using Squarespace. Code CULT for 10% off. Sponsor us. Now we're never going to get sponsored by Squarespace because we just associated it with a cult website. Golly.
It happens to the best of us.
It does. We'll just get right into it because there is a lot to talk about, and we'll get into some information, and then we'll joke about it, about how silly it is. So first, we got about 9 different sections that I best tried to break it down into. Like I said, it's a lot of surface level stuff, but could do a whole episode on like the life of L. Ron Hubbard, because even that crazy. Oh my goodness. But first, just to bust out the origins of Scientology. The Church of Scientology is a group of interconnected corporate entities and other organizations devoted to the practice, administration, and dissemination of Scientology, a set of beliefs and practices invented by science fiction author L. Ron Hubbard in 1953.
The hero of our story.
Yeah, the hero of our story. In 1953 was, do some quick math, Chris. How long ago was that? 70 years ago. And it is thriving. I'm sure that we say every
kiss begins with K.
Yeah, every religion probably has a streaming service, but they probably don't all have as much original content. I mean, they've probably been doing it longer than Netflix has. Which Scientology is variously defined as a cult, a business, and a new religious movement. So by the end of this episode, we can circle back and figure out.
Spoiler alert, it's a cult.
But we can circle back.
Spoiler, it's a tech startup.
We can circle back and we can make a decision at the end.
Scientology brought down Silicon Valley Bank.
Yeah. What will they bring down next? They'll probably bring down streaming services. The core tenets of Scientology include the belief in past lives, the existence of spiritual beings called thetans, and the pursuit of a state of clear, where an individual's thetan is free of negative emotions and experiences. Hubbard claimed that the word Scientology meant knowing about knowing or science of knowledge. So already a good amount to unpack.
I mean, this sounds like manifestation, right? Like the TikTok girlies would be all over this shit. Like, I manifested this. Like, it's the same thing.
See, I'm surprised this started in the 50s because everything about it screams 60s to me. Like, it seems like hippie new way. Yeah.
It is. It is the 60s. I mean, the practices invented by the science fiction author L. Ron Hubbard in 1953. That's when he wrote the text. The religious movement really didn't pick up steam until the 60s, which you're right. That's when that would make sense. People are kind of coming out of the 1950s kind of cookie cutter suburban life and kind of finding more free invention. I believe, what's that, Vietnam? Am I wrong?
Yeah, Vietnam.
Yeah, that's Vietnam.
Yeah, the Kennedy assassinations, civil rights movement. The 60s were a wild time.
Right. A lot of times of self-liberation, which in terms of going clear and wanting to be self-liberated from yourself, that would make a lot of sense to a lot of the youth of the 60s.
Yeah, and especially exactly what you're saying, the hippie, like, of then, the belief
Peace
of
and
past
love.
lives, and that everyone's a spiritual being, and becoming clear of like cleansing yourself of the past lives in order to go to heaven or whatever people. It was very much like people taking what they liked about it and like then going with that.
Like Scientology in theory could have been invented by John Lennon when he was on acid. Like it's anybody could have come up with this shit.
It's also not complicated. You know, well, I know you can talk about the different levels and how they complicate it, but that's not what they're using. They don't start with
no.
They don't start.
They don't lead in with aliens.
They start with like self betterment. Like going to therapy.
And that's how all cults work. You know, you start with you find the most vulnerable people and you offer them a better life. You offer them knowledge and understanding, and then you're in it, and then they start saying crazy shit.
Yeah.
And you're already too far gone to even double check to what's going on. I mean, the problem is with Scientology isn't even the crazy shit. I mean, if you look into any religion, by any view, it's the crazy shit. It's how they structure their organization, and how they exploit you. It has nothing, like, obviously it's easy to point to some of like the belief system and like the actual intricacies of what the information that they're being fed is, sure, but that's not what makes it dangerous. I mean, believing in crazy shit, you'll find that at any college girl you've ever met in your life. People are nuts, but how they're getting to these people and how they're exploiting their money, abusing them financially, sometimes physically, the Sea Org, when they're like indoctrinating children, like that's the dangerous shit.
Yeah, I think we'd be having a very different conversation if Scientology was super low level thing. They didn't put a lot of money and pizzazz into it. They truly believed in like self-betterment and just like the much more spiritual aspect. They weren't asking for your money. Like they were very like, they weren't cutting you off from your families. Like there wasn't like the other crazy shit. Like it could have very much been that hippy dippy type of religion. And yeah, again, we would have been having an incredibly different conversation. And I'm sure the level it is now, L. Ron Hubbard probably could not have even imagined what it would become. I'm not saying that
when did he kick the
good? Like it's not, I'm not saying that he's good, but like I'm sure it went well, because even anyone nowadays, I'm sure there's people modern day who are trying to, I mean, obviously there's people creating like meme religions, but if somebody did this nowadays and was genuinely trying to create a religion, I mean, also with social media and technology and everyone being connected as much as they are, actually, no, I take that back. There is still a lot of like religions that are created now, except they're much more like cult and not good. I don't know if there's been any productive religions that have been created recently.
Scientology to emerge now would be a lot harder. I mean, they kind of function on the principle of isolation, where we are so interconnected media wise that isolation, especially at the beginning, wouldn't really work. I mean, I don't know how young the Scientology demographic is. I don't know if it's like a lot of people. I don't know if a lot of the young people are people whose parents are, you know, part of it.
And then, that's the thing. It's because it's such a young religion. It's or cult or whatever you want to call it. I'm just going to call it religion for you know.
It markets itself as a religion, so we can call it a religion.
It's not something. It's so new that you know there's there's not a ton of generational passing down through it yet. You know
But
what I
there
mean?
is. It's still 70 years. People
Well,
who
sure.
got in
I'm just saying
early.
there's not a ton of it. It's not as deeply seated generational wise.
Sure, but Tom
Yeah.
Cruise is old enough to have grandchildren, you know?
Yeah.
Like there's 3 generations that
He doesn't though, right? Does he?
no, I
No.
don't believe so.
No.
I mean, he could like barely. How old is he?
He's 60.
All
That's
right, so like a young grandchildren.
well, young
They-
grandchildren,
yeah.
sure, but I mean, even if this religion,
And I'm sure there's older people in the religion.
yeah,
like than him.
70 years old. These are like 3 functioning generations.
Okay,
of,
here I got the ages of Scientologists here.
uh-huh.
Nearly 70% are over the age of 30.
There you go.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's mostly 31 to 40-year-olds, 44.6%. 21 to 30-year-olds is 24% though.
So it's mostly millennials.
Yeah.
Is that surprising?
Well, I guess not, but it is because I mean,
Yeah.
they're the media, they're the first internet generation.
Yeah, they grew up with like the connectivity of knowing what it is. It's the equivalent of like people knowing that cigarettes are bad for you but still smoking them.
Mhm.
Like
Right.
it's not like the millennials had no idea that Scientology had some crazy shit going on.
This
So
is
obviously
interesting too.
something must have happened that they still found it interesting enough.
In terms of education, the biggest chunk, or 36% of Scientologists have some college education. 18% have graduated college, but 18% have graduated high school as their highest level of education, which is very interesting. Only 2% graduated from grad school. That's interesting that most of them are college dropouts.
Well,
Hmm.
here's the
Not
thing.
most,
What percent of
plurality.
Scientologists were in the Sea Org?
We're in the what?
Sea Org.
I don't know what that is.
So the Sea Org is a part of Scientology where you're kind of put on a boat when you're young. Like it's almost like camp, but it's conversion camp to Scientology. It's when these parents put these kids through almost an education system, and some opt to do Sea Org rather than traditional education. And
Gotcha.
because
Okay.
a Scientologist gets religious exemption, a lot of times like they pass, I'm not sure if Sea Org is considered to be legitimate education, but it might be considered a like religious institution. But yeah, a lot of people will choose to school their children that way. So I'm not sure if the some college is, a lot of these are kids who were put through the Sea Org and then became Scientologists through just like indoctrination.
Gotcha.
Yeah, that's possible. I had a whole session talking about all of the other business and stuff, which is why I say that the Church of Scientology is really like interconnected corporate entities and organizations, because it like there are so many layers and things splitting out to different things that just to help with different levels of indoctrination and all the different, to connect people of every walk in life, and like whether it's older people or people who are like, hey, I idolize celebrities and there's celebrities doing it, to people who are young and then getting them early.
In millennial, like if you think about it, millennials and young Gen X were kind of the top of the tabloid world, like in the early 2000s when tabloid culture and celebrity culture was considered more interesting. Now that celebrities are more accessible, while we're interested in influencers, we see influencers as the same level as celebrity, which is the everyman. So this kind of standard was something to want to work towards with celebrity, where that's not really the situation now because the everyman is more valued.
Yeah. Well, let's get into it more, because I think that a lot more things will become clear as we get more into it. So before we get into the modern, beliefs, practices, everything with Scientology, first we have to talk about L. Ron Hubbard, who, as we mentioned, is the guy who created everything. So Lafayette Ronald Hubbard. So understandable that he went by L. Ron. Because I don't think it'd be a very different religion if they were like, oh, Lafayette is down in the park. Like,
why wouldn't you go with Lafayette?
I'm saying I think it would have been a much more
Why wouldn't you
hippie
go
dippy.
with Ron? Why the L?
If Lafayette is an
Yeah.
option, you think I'm going with Ron?
I think
That's
he would have gotten a
crazy.
very different group of, it would have been all very much hippie people. If it was like, oh, Lafayette is doing some shit in the town square. Like, let's go all sing Kumbaya.
Would he go by Laugh?
Hey, laugh.
Laugh. You're right, Chris. He probably didn't need the L. He could have just went by Ron or Ronald Hubbard. Like,
It sounds
maybe
more official, I guess.
legal reasons, but
L. Ron Hubbard.
L. Ron. Also, if you say it, it could be that it's like E.L. Ron, like that it could have stood
Like
for.
L.
Elon?
Ron, Eron,
Yeah.
yeah.
Is Elon Musk his real name? Was it Elon? Maybe
Yeah, I'm pretty
the
sure.
chosen name. Conspiracy theory. All right, you look that up.
Elon Reeve Musk, yes.
It is his real name.
That makes sense. He was an American author, primarily of science fiction and fantasy stories, who is best known for having founded the Church of Scientology. In 1950, Hubbard authored Dianetics, the Modern Science of Mental Health, and established a series of organizations to promote Dianetics. In 1952, Hubbard lost the rights to his Dianetics Foundation in bankruptcy proceedings. Hubbard established a Hubbard College, where he continued to promote Dianetics while fighting in the courts over the foundation's intellectual property. Only 6 weeks after setting up the Hubbard College, Hubbard closed it down and moved to Phoenix, Arizona. He established a Hubbard Association of Scientologists International to promote his new Science of Certainty, otherwise known as Scientology. Thereafter, Hubbard oversaw the growth of the Church of Scientology into a worldwide organization. That is such a condensed version of what happened
Mhm.
that we could do a whole episode on L. Ron Hubbard. I don't know if you guys have
Yeah.
know any of the intricate stuff. These are just
He's
some
insane.
highlights.
Yeah.
One thing that is very memorable from my research, Hubbard College, one of the reasons why he shut it down for many reasons. But he shut it down and moved to Phoenix with his girlfriend, who was one of the students at the college. Also, like throughout this whole time, he might have gone through like 3 different marriages. And a lot of them happened around the time that one of the things ended and something else started, that then like divorce, he starts a new thing, meets somebody through that, gets married, the thing gets shut down, divorce, like next, like, so this could also just be a guy who was sad from constantly getting divorced and he just needed a new outlet. But that's why people have hobbies, I don't think creating multiple versions of a religion would fall under a hobby.
Also, things I've just seen about him too. He was your classic charismatic cult leader. Like, he knew how to command a room. He was so certain. When someone is so certain and you are unsure, the certainty and the confidence is just going to take over. And there's actually a movie based on L. Ron Hubbard by Paul Thomas Anderson. It's called The Master. I highly recommend it.
Wait, The Master is about L. Ron Hubbard?
Yeah, Master is about Scientology.
I did not really, to be fair, I did not know what The Master was about.
I mean, it
I've just heard
doesn't
of it.
say Scientology and it's fiction, but
Yeah.
it's based on all that.
The cult of personality is so real because
Yeah.
the cult of personality creates a cult. And it's, I mean, I don't want us to get political here, but like, look at Donald Trump. Look at the like you said, the confidence with which that he bullshits his way through everything.
Like, it really doesn't matter if you're full of shit.
Yeah, it's just the confidence. If you say it's true, then it's true.
He also established the Sea Org because I think he realized that getting people in when they're older was a lot harder. So he had children participate in the Sea Org, which was kind of like a boot camp.
He established a lot of like the
Yeah.
original side organizations that then most of them still exist today. He used to write a lot of pulp fiction magazines, which I don't, again, also, I haven't seen Pulp Fiction, so I don't know if this is explained, but do you guys know what a pulp fiction like why it's called Pulp Fiction? I don't know if that's a part of the movie.
It's not a part of the movie.
Okay, so you don't know what
also, you haven't seen Pulp Fiction?
All right, this isn't Snubs. You can blast me on the movie podcast, okay? This is
also not... there was a lot to unpack with what you just said.
Let me tell you what Pulp Fiction magazines are.
Okay.
That's what the movie's about.
So do you know what a pulp like?
No, just keep talking.
All right, so Pulp Fiction magazines were made from like, they used like the pulp from like the water and paper, that then it was like this really shitty like paper. Pulp derives from the cheap wood pulp paper. So these are like really cheap mass-produced magazines of just simple science fiction stories is what he was making. So you talk about him being charismatic. He was like also I would assume he was a very well-spoken person, because he was a very well-written person, as he had a very large experience writing stuff. And we all always talk about how it was all science fiction, but it was a lot of science fiction and fantasy stuff. So then I'm sure this guy, like we're saying, charismatic person, comes out writing all this, who has experience in science fiction and fantasy stuff, then knowing how to make it seem a little bit more realistic, being like, oh, here's this story with aliens and stuff. And people are like, this is good. This is a good, it might have just been a good story. And then that just went too far. Really. All right. We've already talked a lot about beating around the bush about the beliefs and practices of Scientology, but I just want to quickly read what it actually is, and then we can get a little bit more into it. So similar to everything else that we were saying, I'm sure that not that much has changed over time, but enough that it is now very much thought of as a modern recent religion, because it is recent. We talk about 70 years. I mean, you compare that to Christianity or Judaism or like whatever, like everything else is like, I don't know, hundreds, thousands years old.
I feel like the only thing comparable,
Mormonism.
The only thing comparable would be Mormonism.
Yeah. I wonder if the reason why there's no other big recent religions is because most of them end up going so far over to being cults that they get busted and shut down before they have the chance to become long-running religions.
Also, they get political.
True.
And when things get tied in between modern politics, it gets complicated on what's a religion and what's just politics.
Mm-hmm.
True, because the one that I'm thinking of is the Nixium cults. That's like the big sex cult that was like, I don't know, within the past decade or two.
Yeah.
That was big in the news, that was starting to be a religion, but then all of a sudden it came out, all the crazy shit that they're doing, and people were arrested, and it was
Chris was in that.
He was the leader, actually. He was like, guys,
me and Elizabeth
I have a
Holmes
great
were
idea.
running that thing. Yep.
Yeah, Elizabeth Holmes. There's an example, like, so again, a similar route of like, celebrities and stuff, which we'll get to the church and Hollywood celebrities. Don't you worry. That was an important paragraph. I knew Caroline would want to delve into that. Which already Tom Cruise. Scientology texts say that a human possesses an immortal inner self termed a thetan that resides in the physical body and has experienced many past lives. According to Scientology, the thetan is capable of spiritual advancement and is responsible for a person's thoughts and actions. So already, just that alone, that's fair. It's a fair thing to believe in, I would say.
It's not as off base as something like any other religion.
It's similar to Hinduism.
Yeah.
I'm
thinking that, like, a mortal inner self that like many past
the Holy
lives and
Spirit, it's like a whole thing.
There's bases of that in every religion, which is also then probably like there's a lot of bases in this that show, which I think Caroline might mention earlier, like taking it from other religions, which is then another thing that probably helped it to advance and be as long running as it has.
Right.
This is we're gonna slowly ease to where it's like we're on course, then we're gonna veer off a little bit,
like a true cult leader.
Yeah. Scientologists believe that traumatic events experienced by the thetan over its lifetime have results in negative engrams formed in the mind, causing neuroses and mental problems. So we're still on track. Yeah, how many traumatic events in past lives have we all had? Some more than others.
We don't have the time.
They claimed that the practice of auditing can remove these engrams. Okay. Most Scientology groups charge fees for clients undergoing auditing.
There it is.
There it is. That's where we're getting off track. Auditing sessions can be incredibly expensive and can take years to complete.
Just like the IRS.
Just like laser hair removal.
Yeah.
I mean, this is that is exactly almost word for word what the Catholic Church was doing when Martin Luther put the 95 theses up on that door. You know what I mean? Where it'll charge you to absolve your sins. You know what I mean?
Well, yeah,
Yeah,
and even like with confessionals, isn't that
They don't charge.
No.
well, I know that they don't charge,
Yeah.
but like that, it's like with that aspect,
can
the
admit to
idea
things for
of like
free.
cleansing yourself, but then also, don't they have like the donation basket or whatever during just normal
Yeah, it's
services?
voluntary though.
Yeah.
Like,
not
I mean,
like back in
believe
the
me,
day.
I'm
Yeah.
not here to defend
Yeah, go
the
ahead. Defend the Catholic Church, Caroline. Get on your little soapbox.
You know me.
You and your pulpit.
Yeah, it's the charging, right? They charge
Yeah.
you to go through these kind of things. And here's also the thing with that, is they save that information and they use it against you.
Mhm.
So they basically will, if you're doing something bad or wrong, they will use that against you to gain control over you within the organization.
Yeah, it's basically, I don't even want to say like legitimized blackmail, but like it's blackmail.
Yeah,
That's what it is.
It's organizational blackmail.
Yeah. So the auditing usually involves a one-on-one session between an individual and an auditor. The auditor asks a series of questions and the individual responds, which helps to uncover engrams and other negative emotions, a process called clearing. So there's a lot of these keywords, which what's the HBO documentary called? Isn't it called like
Going clear,
Yeah.
Scientology in the prison of belief.
Yeah. So the words thetan, engrams, auditing, clear, the idea of going clear or clearing, like they're all very much associated with the Church of Scientology, which I got to say, in the modern day, coming up with like buzzwords to relate to your religion, props, there's not that many, like to have it be, because, Christianity, what do they have? Like you think of praying, a lot of the times you're going to think of Christianity, just in general, of like, I see Chris is struggling not to smile. Do you have something to say, Chris?
No.
Pulpit.
Yeah. What are some other Christianity buzzwords that they've got on lock?
The Holy Spirit, values, virtues.
The Eucharist.
Real big throwback.
Jesus, love.
Yeah.
Like they can be like, you're not alone is a big one, which I know doesn't sound like a God thing, but they use a lot of like that to refer to the Christ and not like.
And then they raise you up on eagle's wings, and it's a whole thing.
Yeah. The idea of like you raise me up.
Raising. Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of buzzwords in Christianity. Yeah. I mean, Christianity has been around for a very, very, very long time, and branches of it have branched off with the same central idea. So, I mean, it's so hard to even unpack.
Well, and that's why I say that the fact that a recent religion was able to find some buzzwords that are truly just identified with it, good for them. That seems hard.
Kudos to you, Scientology.
Yeah, good job, Elron. Hats off for coming up with some good buzzwords. He didn't have the internet back then. He couldn't be like, let me find new definitions to some of these words.
One of these things that you didn't list, because I don't think it's important to go into, but one of the things that they tell you about at one point is like Xenon and like this crazy alien thing. I'm
not even going to get to that.
Well, it's actually really interesting. I saw something the other day. It was on TikTok, but I did see it. And apparently the Xenon stuff that they talk about in the Going Clear documentary that people sometimes talk about when they hear it's kind of so strange that people latch on to that. That was so secret and shrouded in secrecy that when that became a thing that people knew about, they had to switch directions because it was a spoiler, because people going in already knew some of the information that was only meant for the highest levels. So they had to completely pivot.
I saw something also on TikTok the other day about somebody, because South Park did a whole episode where they went into it, and on the screen it says this is what they actually believe. And people who were Scientologists, that was their way of finding out. And I saw people talking about how they left the Church of Scientology, or at least tried to leave the Church of Scientology because they saw that on South Park, and they're like, that's crazy.
We watched the same video.
Oh, was it the same TikTok?
Yes.
That's funny. Okay.
Yeah. Well, I mean, South Park, good on them. That's what we get for it. They're very quick.
They were early on Scientology. They were early on Kanye West.
Didn't they also do stuff with like Did they do like Mormon episodes? And
They
stuff
wrote a
like
whole
that?
musical about it.
Oh my God! Well,
That's
you're
them.
right.
That's
No,
them.
I knew that was them, but I was wondering if I'm South.
They're
I mean,
fascinated with
they
religion.
have
must
done
have done-
things on.
Yeah, they must have done it on there.
They're fascinated with religion.
Yeah.
But yeah, and no other show can touch upon it like they can.
Yeah.
Oh, and then they had all the stuff with like Muhammad. That
Except
like,
Glee,
banned episode.
grilled cheeses, that episode,
True.
deep.
That's a really deep episode. So going back to the practices of Scientology, once these engrams have been removed, in theory, an individual is given the status of clear. They can take part in a further series of activities that are termed operating thetan, OT levels, which obviously require further payments. Scientology is often criticized for its secrecy and the fact that much of its doctrine is only revealed to members who have reached certain levels within the organization. So we've already touched upon that now, especially in the modern world of Twitter, TikTok, every other social media, and just every like human thought being available on the internet, I'm sure that it was much easier to be secret before, people could tweet about it and be like, I'm this level, whatever.
Right.
I'm a level 4 Scientologist.
But that's the thing. If something's shrouded in secrecy and quote unquote unknown, they can continue. I mean, it's a small barrier, right?
Yeah.
You can just continue putting in different information.
Yeah.
Like, okay, people know about that. Let's put something different up there. Like every time they're going to be able to figure it out and reorganize because that's the way of keeping people in. And they have the time and the funds for it.
Oh, yeah. They and especially now, for as much as, and we'll get into, I mean, we've already touched upon the controversies with Scientology, but at this point, with the amount of money, power, and reach that they have, unless there was some sort of a legal thing to shut it down, I would argue it might be too big to ever be completely shut down and put away with just the money, power, and reach that they have.
I mean, actually, it would be pretty easy. They would just have to revoke their tax status.
Yeah, it needs to come from the government, really. But then it gets tricky.
Yeah, but even still, like, even if the official Church of Scientology is put away with the amount of people, and even if they have to pay a large amount to the government, like, I wonder if then there would just be small, quiet people in the corner, like, still believing in, like, doing it. Like, granted, I guess it's probably that with everything of, like, nothing would ever truly go away if a cult was shut down. People would.
Someone's got to die. Like, honestly, that's what has to happen. Like, this Church of Scientology needs to facilitate a crime.
Well,
like a real,
has.
They have, but something provable
Yeah.
that is the evidence is so out there that the FBI can go in and prove that it was the church that facilitated it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Maybe they could pull a Jonestown or something and be like, all right, everybody who wants to go and make it to heaven, we're going to pass out some Kool-Aid and then just do
Honestly,
a whole big thing.
that is it. Like, people have to like actually die for this to go away because
Mhm.
people will die for their religion.
Yeah. Especially once it has passed the point of being much more cult than religion.
Right.
So speaking of celebrities, the relationship between Scientology and Hollywood is not a new connection. And I don't even touch upon all of the people that have. I only touch upon the people that I know, but I know that there's even other ones.
I have a
So-
list in front of me.
You can
I do too.
you can read the list at the end. In order to facilitate the continued expansion of Scientology, the organization has made efforts to win allies in the form of powerful or respected people. Scientology has had a written program, again, same type of level with Sea Org, like just another outlet that they have, another branch, governing celebrity recruitment since at least 1955. So another branch that has been, very much embedded within it to get a different reach of people, like you're saying, people who more so idolize celebrities or whatever they do, which was when L. Ron Hubbard created Project Celebrity, offering rewards to Scientologists who recruited targeted celebrities. The organization operates celebrity centers for the use of artists, politicians, leaders of industry, sports figures, and other prominent individuals. Actor Tom Cruise and John Travolta are two of the most well-known Scientologists.
Yeah.
They probably are the face of Scientology.
because
this
they've made
point.
themselves it. John
Yeah.
Travolta participated in a movie about
Battlefield Earth.
Scientology. And Tom Cruise is literally a leader in
Yeah.
the movement. I mean, there's rumors about that's how they pick his wives. That's how like they control his projects and all of that stuff.
But Top Gun Maverick was fantastic.
Top Gun Maverick was so good, and I can't wait to see that Mission Impossible movie. You have no idea.
The Mission Impossible movie does look
Oh my God, it looks so good.
yeah.
Magnolia is great too, if you've ever seen Magnolia. Tom Cruise, there's videos of him speaking like crazy at this conference. During the time he was not, I don't know how involved. I think he's still very involved. He's not as vocally involved. I think his publicists are like, you can.
Yeah, it was hurting his brand.
It was hurting his brand. So, I mean, that's part of the reason why he didn't attend the Oscars this year. It's part of the reason that he isn't as public about his personal life anymore. Like, we don't know who he's dating. We don't know who he's married to. We don't know anything about him anymore, where we used to know everything about him.
Well, was Nicole Kidman in Scientology, or was it and then
that's
she
a requirement
got
of getting married to Tom Cruise is you have to be in Scientology. Katie Holmes was in it. Nicole Kidman was in it. I don't know about his other. He's probably had another wife or girlfriend, but it's a part of it, and that's part of it too. Like when you're in love, like manipulating that and being in a religion for someone else. And
I mean, also especially with Tom Cruise, that it's like.
He's so magnetic.
And like, isn't he often referred to as like the last like movie star? Or that it's like someone like John Travolta. Yeah,
sure.
He's a little weird looking, and like
he hasn't been famous in 10 years.
Yeah, but Tom Cruise
is the most famous person on the planet. I'd say, besides maybe The Rock. Like
No, I would still argue he's probably more famous than them.
More famous.
Well, maybe in current day, but like to all the generations of people that know him.
Everyone knows who Tom Cruise is.
Yeah.
He makes movies for mass audiences, and he has been doing so for a very long time. He's a lot older than people think he is. Tom Cruise is so famous, and that he's so entrenched in such a weird organization makes the organization almost have this weird legitimacy to it.
Yeah. It makes it more credible because they're like, oh, well, if somebody like this ginormous movie star has been a part of it for a while, then obviously it can't be too terrible because the guy from Top Gun Maverick is in it. The guy, the pilot guy, he's so cool on screen.
He's dead inside.
Oh, yeah.
But also people involved. I'm sorry, Chris. Jenna Elfman is also involved. You might know her from Dharma and Greg. She was also on a bunch of shows back in the 90s. Giovanni Ribisi, she was Phoebe's brother in Friends. He also has been a character actor for absolutely ever. I actually really like him. John Travolta, everybody knows about. Danny Masterson, he was on That 70s Show. Elizabeth Moss, people don't know about that. She's the lead on The Handmaid's Tale. She was married to Fred Armisen for a hot minute. And Leah Remini is also a very famous former Scientologist. She has spent her entire latter half of her life trying to get people out of it. Christy Alley, who recently passed away, was on Cheers, and she was also a big Scientologist.
There's also Jason Lee, apparently, and Juliette Lewis.
Will Smith had a touch of it. I think he was in it for like 2 seconds and then left.
Laura Prepon.
Yeah.
I don't know who these people are.
Laura Prepon was also on That 70s Show. Donna.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
Oh.
Seth Rogen tells a crazy story about how like Tom Cruise tried to get into it with him about it.
Yeah. That he like called him or like went to his house. Or
I would
like
be so excited if he started talking about it while in my presence. I would be like, this is the best thing ever.
Yeah. Because it's not like it's like a classic movie trope where all of a sudden then like you're like the circle thing on like the eyes. It's like, whoa, like he's not like swinging something in front of your face to like hypnotize you. He's just talking about it. And at this point, he should know better than to talk to a comedian, let alone Seth
This was
Rogen
many years
it.
ago. This was pre-internet.
Yeah.
Yeah. This was when they were making Tropic Thunder. Great movie, by the way. He's also really good in that.
The internet existed in 2008, Caroline.
Not in the same way it does now. Not the way social media is.
That's true.
Facebook was 2005. This is 3 years out of Facebook. I mean, the internet existed, but not.
The first iPhone came out in 2008. So like it wasn't even the era of smartphones yet.
Yeah, we weren't talking to each other the same way that we are now.
Yeah, that's fair. Well, so even with all the celebrities that we talked about, and we even touched on this before, obviously, there's very much a cult mentality around Scientology. Many former members and critics have accused Scientology of operating with a cult mentality, including the use of brainwashing techniques and tactics to control its members. The church has been accused of using tactics such as sleep deprivation, isolation, and manipulation to keep its members loyal and compliant. Former members have also reported experiencing psychological abuse, including gaslighting and emotional manipulation.
So
Sounds like
dating
my last
Caroline.
boyfriend.
I was gonna say that I knew that there was gonna be some joke by the end of that, especially using gaslighting in modern
That's
context.
so funny. We went the
Um,
same route.
Kind of. We kind of went opposite routes. You said you're the problem. I mean, just your classic, just slew of problems. I mean,
I don't think anybody's come out of Scientology being like, you know what? It was
That was
fine. It just
fun.
wasn't for me. Like, it just wasn't for me.
we had a good run.
Yeah. You know what? It was a fun summer.
Leah Remini made a documentary about how it was not that bad.
It's
was
also
okay.
after.
Well,
Like, once you leave, you can't get out. Like, once you leave, they follow you. They try to
Yeah.
invade your space. They follow your family. They harass you. That's also part of it. Like, the
Leah
lead.
Remini the Leah Remini stuff is fascinating
Mhm.
because they have really done a number on her.
You know what they also do on women, which I don't know if you know this. Like they use mean girlisms. They use like the Hailey Bieber, Selena Gomez shit to like get to you. They will like talk about you with the other girls in Scientology and be like, "Oh, this is what she told me at her session," and they'll like talk shit about you.
yeah.
I'm sure priests do the same thing.
Sure, but not amongst. I know that was a joke, but like that's another one. That's tough.
Yeah. Well, and that's why I'm
It's like high school,
You will not believe what
Yeah.
Jenny confessed today.
right? Crazy.
well, and that's all the same type of thing that we've been talking about of like, even obviously there's, the bigger words of emotional manipulating and gaslighting, but even just, I'm sure the pressure, not only from like the higher ups, but even just other people in it. And then also seeing what happens to people when they get out, exactly like what you're saying, that once they remotely have you hooked, they only just reel you in. And if you
Mhm.
start to go out, then it's just even more pressure. So some of those people that are in it probably think it's safer to just stay in it as opposed to even attempt to get out. Because when
Right.
people do get out, then it's whole big things, even just for celebrities. And if that's what it is for all of these celebrity faces, imagine what happens to the quote unquote nobodies who get out.
Also, the poor,
Yeah. Like
the
people
financial
yeah.
abuse.
Exactly. And people who then, out of it, at this point, might have no connection to any loved ones, family, friends. They might have been completely cut off from that. And also maybe don't even have any other jobs relating to anything like that. Like then once your whole life becomes it, if you don't have a support system or the financial means, then just safer. It's truly a toxic relationship, which is
Yeah.
what all cults are. That's not a hot take. And there's been no shortage of controversies and conspiracy theories around Scientology.
How about you hit us with some?
I'll hit you with some. Obviously, most of these have come out since, as we continue to talk about the big era of digital media and finding out about it. But we can only imagine, we don't even want to imagine what it was like before the time of digital media. And like, I can't even imagine what it was like for people trying to get out and like saying, oh my God, Scientology is crazy, and nobody believing them because there's no proof out there because they kept it so under wraps. But there are, like I said, quite a number of conspiracy theories that surround Scientology, including claims that the church is involved in government espionage and intelligence gathering, which that I feel like that conspiracy is with not just every cult, but every organization ever. Just assuming that the intelligence gathering that it's happening with TikTok and China and like,
I don't believe that. Like, I hate Scientology. I just don't think that's true.
well, I think that gives them too much credit to
Yeah.
be like, oh, they're
Yes.
working
Yeah.
with the government and they're gathering intelligence. And
I think there's reasons that the government hasn't regulated them. I think they are probably significant donors through shell corporations or super PACs and stuff. And I think it would be fascinating to delve into their political contributions because I'm sure there are many of them. but I don't think that they're running the CIA or anything.
No, they're more interested in what's happening within than what's happening outside.
Yeah.
And with as much as pressure as they've had from the government, that'd be a weird act for them to keep up, of like, oh, like pay your taxes, nudge nudge.
With who,
And they're
like,
"Ah."
what information are they gathering for the like what like
Yeah.
they can just tap our phones. They don't need Scientology to do it.
Yeah. Well, obviously before the age of digital media, I guess, but also
Wouldn't they rip funding then as we moved into the 21st century? Like, it doesn't make
true.
sense.
Yeah. So that's definitely one of the far-reaching conspiracy theories. Some have claimed that the church has ties to the CIA and other government agencies, and that its members are used as spies. Again, for what?
Well, that's paranoia, right? When you're constantly
Yeah.
being watched by everybody around you, you start to think bigger. I mean,
Yeah.
that's part of the reason how they get you.
Yeah. Not everybody's out to get you, and you're constantly under watch, and it's like more pressure to then stay where you are, as opposed to trying to find out more about the organization or try to get out of the organization, because then you think that there might be repercussions if you go either way.
Also, when you're in the organization, you are constantly being watched, and everybody is your enemy. So you're obviously going to believe that that's how it is on the outside world too.
Yeah, because then you don't feel like it's different up to you inside. You're like, oh, this is just how everybody is. So that doesn't give you a reason to be like, maybe something's up with all the things we're doing inside these big white buildings.
Right.
There's also allegations that the church engages in illegal activities such as money laundering and human trafficking.
That seems right to me.
That's a little more believable.
That checks out.
I mean, why wouldn't they run an illegal organization? They have the isolation, the means, and just the power. So why not?
Yeah. Also, if people are thinking that like mattress companies are money laundering,
they are.
I fully believe it. Mattress Farm.
Then why
next week on the Dark Archives?
Mattress companies. If people have means to believe that smaller companies like that are money laundering, then what's to stop people? Especially, we'll get into the tax exempt stuff. Like the Scientology has never been the most upfront about their financial means or intentions. So
yeah,
very understandable. Most of those claims remain unproven, but they have definitely contributed to just more controversy and mistrust surrounding Scientology.
That was a nice legal disclaimer you put there.
I know. It also leads us right into controversies and accusations. So this section also it could have a whole episode on the controversies relating to the Church of Scientology, but I've brought it down to a few ones, and then there's a specific example that we'll talk about in a second. Though it has attained some credibility as a religion in many countries, Scientology has also been described as both a cult and a commercial enterprise. Not new, not a new thought this episode. Critics have pointed to the organization's aggressive legal tactics against its critics and former members, as well as allegations of abuse and financial exploitation within the organization. All the same points that you've already brought up. Former members have also spoken out about the intense control that the church exerts over its members' lives, including their forced disconnection policy, in which some members are required to shun friends or family members who are antagonistic to the organization. So that's something that we've only really touched upon, which just
we do the same thing at Snubs, though.
You guys force each other to push people away, or you force your guests to push people away?
We force our guests to push people away.
Yeah.
That's why you don't have friends.
That's fair. I was check out the episode of Snubs that I did.
Yeah, that's a whole thing. There's like I'm crazy. I've read like a bunch of stuff about like the situation with Tom Cruise and Nicole Kidman's kids. It's like really complicated. Like some kids, it's like a division. Like some kids are in Scientology and talk to their father, and the kids that aren't talk to their mother.
Interesting.
Yeah. And similar to what I had said about, I don't even know in what context, but if that type of disconnection and stuff is happening on the large scale, like front facing things, imagine exactly what you were saying, the smaller scale families or people who don't have the financial means to help the rest of their families get out, or potentially maybe some kids that got it out, but their parents are so consumed in it that it's like people have truly lost family members to this organization.
It's like QAnon.
Yeah. I mean, so much of those same elements have popped up throughout history. I had done another episode of the Dark Archive with my other co-host Julia about satanic panic a few weeks ago, which was about the satanic panic of the 80s, where everyone was like, oh, like people are like child abuse and sexual abuse, and they're stealing your children and assaulting them in basements and sacrificing them to Satan. And so there's always been scare tactics used throughout history in many different contexts. I mean, yeah, a modern day version of this and that and everything is QAnon, which I think the reason why, what you said earlier, that hasn't become more religious than a cult mentality is because of politics being brought into it much more. And, you know, Pizzagate from a few years ago, and everyone attacking, being like, oh, Democrats. Now, in the 80s, it was, oh, like, all these people are doing it. And then nowadays it's, oh, it's the liberal elite are all running everything from the underground and assaulting children. And additionally, the church has also been accused of using contracts and legal action to silence critics and former members. Not surprising in the slightest. Many have criticized Scientology's use of the e-meter, which they call a medical device used to assist in auditing sessions. The e-meter is like the two rods that they hold.
Yeah. It's bullshit.
Yeah, wait. How do you both know what this is? What is this?
So while you're giving it like a confessional, right? While you're talking to these people about your problems and going clear, you hold these two rods and they're connected. And there's like a little panel in front of it, and it ticks to see how like pure your soul is, or some version of that, or how many thetans are in you and taking you over. So while you're talking about it, they kind of use that measurement. Obviously, it's like magnets, and it's bullshit. And it's sad because people believe it. And they call it a medical device, which I think there's really vague ways to like call something a medical device, like the classification of that. So they're able to use like the vague classification to their advantage.
Yeah. Okay. So then the auditor sees the little screen and they're like, oh, like, are you sure there's not something that you're like not telling us or something? And it's just a way to reinforce like their questioning.
And their authority. They're able to show that, oh my God, I am holding something back. Like they know about it. They must have a higher
power, and like this machine must work. So understandably, people are accusing it of having no scientific basis, and that it's simply a tool used to extract money from members, because they'll be like, oh, you haven't quite gotten all of it out, like we're going to have to do another 5 sessions, and that's going to be X amount of money. So it's just used to perpetuate the cycle. Critics have also accused the organization of promoting pseudoscience and harmful practices, such as the use of vitamins and supplements to treat mental health issues. Again, a whole other issue that we don't even have time to go into, of like just showing that if they're like, oh, we have these specific vitamins that help you and show you the true world, and if you leave us, you won't be able to access it, and then it's like bad things are going to happen.
I just noticed, or not just now, but when I was looking at the Scientology demographics, it was from the Scientology website, which I didn't realize when I clicked on it, but it said 86% of their members had not taken any form of medical drugs in the last year.
Yeah.
Well, Tom Cruise went on. I mean, now it's weird because Matt Lauer was the one that gave the interview, but it was like Good Morning, whatever. And he went on and just started talking about how like all like psychology is all pseudoscience, like going to therapy is bad for you, and like taking medication is ruining your life.
Just another example of them using like that. I'm sure
he believes it.
Yeah. And I mean, we've seen I don't even want to say religions, but a lot of different viewpoints of people being like, oh, like that not believing in medicine.
Oh, it's like the vaccine.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm sure that it's not hard to be like, hey, if you don't like, that's just another demographic to get to.
Why don't you take vitamins?
Oh, take vitamins. And oh, you guys are the only ones who have these vitamins and supplements, and I can't get them if I leave, and now I need them to stay alive. Meanwhile, they're all probably like Tic Tacs, or worse, they might actually be something that's fucking up people's like systems.
Yeah.
Like it could have like trace amounts of like
mercury.
Yeah. Or fucking like nicotine that then all of a sudden they feel like, oh my God, like I need it, but they don't know like what it is or something.
Gavin knows how to run a cult.
I was gonna say there's a red
a
laser dot going on Gavin's head right now.
Now it's like from the window that's going out. Right on my head, there's a dot. Whoa. Yeah, after I do all this research on Scientology, I'm like, guys, this isn't, there's some ideas here. Everyone, I'm doing this new thing called Gavinism. I don't know if you guys, I'll email you pamphlets about it. So one notable controversy from well before the time of the internet was in 1979, several Scientology members were convicted for their involvement in the organization's Operation Snow White, which is a pretty cool operation. I love a good operation name that is like intrigue. What is that? It was the largest theft of government documents in U.S. history. So
Interesting.
I'm not 100% sure why it's called Operation Snow White. But Scientologists were also convicted of fraud, manslaughter, and tampering with witnesses in French cases, malicious libel against lawyer Casey Hill, and espionage in Canada. So we've barely touched upon it. I don't know if Scientology, especially at this point, is very much a global phenomenon's not even the right word. Like, it's not that this is just crazy Americans.
It's extended its reach.
Yeah, it's extended its reach, and so which then also helps the credibility that I just went on vacation to Canada, and they also have a Scientology here. They also have churches here, so that must mean that it's all the same, and they all it's a real religion.
Mm-hmm.
We have there's a big one in Times Square.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, they have like the big buildings in all the not only the big ones in America, but I think there's a big one in France.
There's one in London, I believe.
Yeah, I think that there's also.
I mean, it's still Western, super Western. Yeah.
I don't know if this is cracked into Beijing yet.
Yeah, like that's not. It's hard to translate it. Not. I'm not even saying words wise, but these ideas in terms
the
of
ideals
self
and values.
Yeah, the ideas of value of like it being about self. And like self-centric instead of collective centric is very Western.
Yeah. Well, and even also like Chris had said in the very beginning, that the idea of the multiple lives is all very Hinduism. So then I'm sure if they hear this, they're like, oh, we actually have something similar that's better. So and doesn't cost us a lot of money. Then doesn't push us away from our families. So we're just gonna go with
thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there might not be as much intrigue there versus in America, there's not a lot of grand overarching religions that have the exact same values, or at least in the similar line. Or people who join might be of the point of view that they're like, oh, Christianity and Judaism and all that they're the real cults, and Scientology is the one true religion and stuff, which I'm sure would not be a hard leap for them to make, and then just
they can make any leap.
Yeah, obviously we've proven in the modern age that you can accuse anyone of anything and believe anything and nothing matters, and you can find someone to reassure your beliefs and push you in that direction.
Yes,
and that can make people do some crazy things.
It's an echo chamber.
Yeah. So just to reinforce some more controversies involving the Church of Scientology, which this is just a very short list of it: criminal behavior by members of the organization, including the infiltration of the U.S. government. So yeah, don't understand why there's the conspiracy theories that they're working with them, because at least from the front facing, they do not have a good relation with the government.
No.
Organized harassment of people perceived as enemies of the Church of Scientology, which we've talked about what they do to their critics. The death of Scientologist Lisa McPherson while in the care of the organization. That, again, is another type of thing that we could go into a whole episode on. That they were, I don't know if either of you guys know the story of Lisa McPherson, but they were running different tests or something on her, and then she needed actual medical care, and then either she was like, no, I don't need it, or somebody else on her behalf was like, no, she doesn't need it, and then she ended up dying very much in her care when it could have been avoided. So that was a big controversy. Attempts to legally force search engines to censor information critical of the Scientology organization
didn't work,
and also not very surprising that they would try to do that. Allegations of the organization's leader, David Miscavige, beats and demoralizes staff, and the physical violence by superiors towards staff working for them is a very common occurrence in the organization.
Also, people don't know where his wife is.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a good amount of people from Scientology who are MIA, which another controversy. But yeah, pretty much violence and abuse of pretty much every single aspect that you could go, emotional and physical in any sense, has probably happened, which again shows why, yeah, people, not everybody's sold on it. Another controversy is the idea of it being tax exempt. I am no leader. I've never had formal training by the IRS on taxes. I don't think anybody completely understands taxes.
That comes from it being a religion on paper. A church is, Caroline mentioned it earlier. John Oliver does a fantastic piece on this. So
Yeah.
go find that episode of the last week tonight, because he delves into all of it.
Yeah.
All the tax stuff.
Definitely better, but really simply, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, and 90s, there was a lot of controversy about whether it should be tax exempt, and then it became a worldwide thing that in some countries it was, in some countries it wasn't.
Mhm.
So definitely, I wonder if I wouldn't say it helped to spread the credibility, but just helped to spread the notoriety of Scientology, that of people hearing, oh, there's this new religion that like it's in the news, and in the news for the wrong reasons, but might have helped to just continue to spread the name in a pre-media era.
Mhm.
So the future of Scientology remains uncertain. We've talked about, I don't think it's really going anywhere. What do you
Me
guys think?
neither. I mean, it'll be interesting how to see it pivot,
Yeah.
right? Because like every religion right now is like dealing with, we live in a less religious society. God isn't as present in our well, it is still because of movements, but in terms of
With
young people aren't as
Yeah.
invested in religious organization as our previous generation. So as any quote unquote religion, they're going to have to pivot to see how they're going to pivot to the younger demographic. I mean, I'll be interested to see if they delve into like, there's the social media stuff, but I mean, they might get involved in influencer culture. If they've gotten involved in celebrity culture before, why wouldn't they get involved with influencer culture? Why wouldn't they have a girl? I'm not saying that this girl's involved in Scientology, but why wouldn't they have someone like Alex Earl going on and talking about something that really helped her become as beautiful and as aspirational as she is? Like, why wouldn't they? I mean, if it's helpful for their organization.
Yeah. And I mean, I think, not that we want Scientology to continue, but I think the past 70 years have proven that, which I think we said very close to the beginning, that the only thing that could truly take it down would be like if the government steps in.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But if this many controversies and news about it has come out and it's still as strong as it is, then there's no, and like I said at the beginning, they have ventured into, obviously their streaming service is nothing like Netflix or Hulu, but what happens when they start to make original programming that has undertones of Scientology, but then is marketed as just your regular show, and it just so happens to be on this new streaming service called Scientology Plus or whatever, and like that, oh, you know what, it actually is a good story if you ignore the Scientology aspect, and then people watch it, and then you'll get the occasional person that goes, oh, I mean, I didn't hate the science, it makes sense, is that what Scientology? And then it just goes into that. So
how they're going to market themselves to influential young people is interesting, because like in terms of celebrities, while Tom Cruise is like so famous and like so at the right now the forefront of our culture, I mean, people like Elizabeth Moss and John Travolta and these people are Scientologists, but they're not. I mean, this isn't Timothy Chalamet and Zendaya.
Mhm.
Right? How they're going to influence the youth culture is going to be a sign of its longevity.
Yeah, people aren't just doing what Giovanni Ribisi are doing. They need to update.
And nobody's really paying attention to it right now. Like Scientology, like when the documentary came out, obviously everybody was, but everybody who's in it doesn't really talk about it as much as they used to.
Mhm.
So how, if it becomes the forefront of our culture again, is also going to be something we'll have to wait and see about.
Yeah. Well, even just in the past 10 years, arguably even the past 5 years, the news cycle, well, I guess 10 years, like, yeah, probably the past 10 years, the news cycle has become so like insane turnover that even to be relevant for more than a month, there's got to be something else besides a documentary. And also, obviously, the main times that they've been relevant have then been the controversies and documentaries and series coming out of people talking about why it's not good.
Mhm. They don't get a lot of good press when
Yeah.
they do,
No.
but
Yeah.
all news is good news to some. So
Yeah.
If they get Pedro Pascal, we're all screwed.
Ooh. Yeah. I mean, you're totally right. They have to get influencers. Like
Right?
there's no way they're not already doing that. Like
Yeah.
there must be things in the works. And I feel like if they did get influencers, even if they were small, they would probably go viral for being like, oh, a Scientology influencer. And they would have to be really careful
Oh
about
my
how they do it,
gosh.
because otherwise they would immediately be like, oh, canceled. Like
Well,
everybody turns on
no.
people so quickly, I think.
Sure, but then like watch, it's going to be like anything. Everything comes back around. Everything. So you could look at the comments. Why are you giving someone shit about their religion? This is religious discrimination.
True.
Like
Freedom of speech.
freedom of
Yeah.
like everything comes back around. Like if you look at things that were controversial 10 minutes ago, the next minute everybody's like, oh my gosh, look at what we're doing. This person got absolutely screwed by the media. Now they're on their redemption arc. Like
Yeah.
it's all about narratives.
Mhm.
True. And then behind all that, money, making money and using money to make more money. So this has been a very interesting topic. I'm very glad that you told me to do this, Caroline, because I think it was a very hard, when I was first doing research to figure out what we should talk about, I was like, this is kind of a hard line to walk. But if I've learned anything, I feel like there's still no shortage of us to talk about things that we can all talk about that
Yeah.
hopefully won't get us canceled by Scientologists.
Oh, we're definitely canceled by Scientologists. I just hope they
I'm
don't
okay
care
with
enough
that.
to pursue anything.
Yeah. Yeah. If Scientologists don't like us, I think I'll still be able to sleep easy.
However, I do have a message for Tom Cruise.
He's a big fan. So if
I work in the industry, I still have an interest in working on one of your productions. I think what you're doing is insane, but you know what? We can have a conversation and we can move past it.
I think that's a very, I
How
can't tell whether
how bipartisan of you.
Yeah. I can't tell whether that's you taking the higher ground or you assume that he would take the higher ground and include somebody that's like not a Scientologist. But I'm glad to know where your level line of being a sellout draws, and that's working on a Tom Cruise production. To be fair, I would also probably work on a Tom Cruise production. Are you kidding me? But that goes right back around of why he's probably the perfect celebrity to have as the face.
Right.
Yeah.
Until they get, your Timothy Chalamet's, your Zendayas, your Tom Holland's, your Pedro Pascal's, like.
Mhm.
But yeah, if when I make another few podcasts about weird things, a few of them down the road, decades from now, we'll have to come back and see how Scientology has changed years from now. When I'm 3 more strange podcasts down the line.
When you're already in it.
Yeah. When I join and then after I get out of it. And again, this is all in good humor and we joke all the time. Out of the 3 of us, genuinely, who do you guys think would be the one to fall for Scientology? I don't want to say fall for, but
Chris.
to like join.
No, not me.
But it said it preys on. Where's the list? Was it? Where is it?
I don't think I mentioned it.
I thought it said it proves on people who are depressed and looking for a way.
I think we might have said that.
Oh.
I
kid.
All right. Well, actually, who, and I might know the answer to this question, who out of the 3 of us you think would make a cult?
You.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. But like, no, I would make the true hippy dippy cult of like, let's all just hang out and like.
Gavin, you would be a cult leader in a second.
I think I take that as a compliment.
I knew
He's
you would.
already whipping up the Kool-Aid behind him.
It's in the fridge cooling down, letting it all mix up.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, no, cults are some crazy shit. Maybe I'll have to do a whole season about cults. Would you come back if we did other cult episodes?
Yeah.
Huh?
I like Jonestown. I
wanna
like
do a
Waco.
Jonestown episode.
Waco.
Yeah.
What's going on there?
What about the 12 tribes in the Yellow Deli, the one that was in
Yeah.
Ithaca, New York? You know about that one?
We gotta do
I
that one.
don't. I
Tyler
don't
wants
know
to do
about
that
we don't
one.
have time to get into that.
We could go into Soul Cycle,
Or CrossFit?
CrossFit.
Peloton.
A lot of Equinox. A lot of.
That's how
cult
they
mentality.
do it through gyms. Sometimes. Anyway.
Well, I feel like just gyms have like cult.
Yeah.
A lot of things. The idea of cult
Planet
mentality.
Fitness is a cult.
Yeah. We'll get into that on another one. So once again, check out Snubs. We'll put the
Yeah.
links in the description for these guys.
We just did The Last Duel. Go check out The Last Duel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll be going.
It's
So yeah,
about
check
a
it out.
movie.
Genuinely, to be serious for a sec, Snubs, hilarious. You
Thank
guys
you.
are great.
Oh, thank you.
Check that out. And thanks for being here, Caroline.
Oh, thank you. I always forget that like Chris isn't a guest.
I'm like
He's
part of this.
Yeah,
He's like part of
it.
this.
I'm like here.
Yeah.
That's weird. But next time you guys have me on Snubs, then you can toss me around and make fun of me even more, because then that'll be your domain. You came into our domain, but next time.
Yeah, I
you
kind of
can-
forgot Chris was here.
Yeah, that's
It's like my podcast.
I was just debating which route to go, to either agree with you or disagree with you, but I'll fade to black before we can do that. Ah! This podcast is produced and engineered by Gavin Berger with High Tops Media. The Dark Archive is co-hosted by Gavin Berger, Julia Siegel, Chris Massarelli, and Shaila Jayasinghe. Our theme music is composed by Jeffrey Taylor. You can rate and review The Dark Archive on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, and check out more episodes of The Dark Archive available on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to follow us on Instagram at The Dark Archive Podcast and on TikTok at The Dark Archive. And see more of our content with High Tops Media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at High Tops Media.